Today's episode, unofficially, although it could be official, maybe, unofficially brought to you by...
Show them to the camera.
Show them to the camera.
Gluten-free Oreos!
We found them.
Oh, you guys sound really excited about that. I'm glad I
I was
bought
excited.
four
No, I
things
am
of them last
excited.
night.
I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know if you want me to just like sit here and be the showgirl, or
Well, you do that very well, so...
You're like modeling the Oreos. You're like the. I can't stop thinking about the Price is Right. We used to watch at Grandma Olson's house. The women.
I don't know what my job is. You didn't tell me.
Cute little dress.
Yes.
Yeah, the biggest heels ever.
Yeah. Only people that are gluten-free and have been gluten-free a very long time will actually really, truly appreciate the significance of the show of gluten-free Oreos right now.
Yeah. True.
So, okay, well, we are back with our Wait What
Oh yeah.
podcast.
Welcome to Wait What?
Wait, what?
There we go. I am Rochelle.
I'm Kaylee. I'm Erica.
I'm Jillian.
Awesome. We are here. Do you want to kick it off?
This is where we take common beliefs, sayings, or actions, deconstruct them, and have conversations sharing our opinions and experiences about how they have affected us. Our goal is to start and extend conversations.
Yeah. So today, in honor of Women's Day, we will be releasing this episode on International Women's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted to do an episode today all about women. And one of the topics that we talk a lot about is the fact that us as women do a lot of things, just do a lot of things without even really thinking about it, because of being a woman. And where we sort of recognized this was when you talk to a man. That's where it really becomes really like glaring that like, wow, you don't do that, like. And so and even for myself it was really interesting as we started having conversation, because like, I mean, obviously I've just had more years of that, and so as you guys started talking I was like, oh wow, yeah, I guess that is kind of odd or different. So really a couple things. We want, first of all, this, I guess, sort of a disclaimer that like this isn't about like us telling women like you need to do these things. This isn't about like a training or anything like that, to like that this is what we have to do, because the problem with that is it can become then, well, if you don't do this and something happens, then you're responsible. And bottom line is you're not responsible.
No matter what.
Right. Like you're not responsible for someone else's bad behavior and bad choices. So really what we do want to do is, like some of this, it's going to be kind of funny stories. Some are
scary,
really scary at the time, so now we kind of laugh about some of them, but some are scary. But really we wanted this as like sort of a celebration or a recognition of what women go through, and kind of what we deal with, and maybe to bring some light to people, to men, to whoever, to realize like, yeah. So anyways, the first thing we wanted to start out with was just some of like, what are some of the things that we do that we just do, that we don't necessarily think about. So we could start like last night. You and Jillian went out for a walk.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's
a great
so
start.
Funny that just happened. I was just really stressed and I wanted to get out of the house and get some fresh air. And Erica wasn't feeling great and my mom didn't really want to go out, so it was just Jillian and I that went out, and it was late. It was pretty late, so it was dark. and I was so scared. So I dress like in all these baggy clothes so then hopefully it wouldn't look like I was a girl. And then we both carried little bottles of hairspray. And then I brought my water bottle and I was ready to bash someone over the head just in case it happened. And it was so scary. I think it actually made me more stressed because the whole time I was like...
And you kept looking around. I was like, "Oh my goodness, what am I supposed to do?" She's like freaking out.
That's what you're supposed to do. Though you have to like.
I know, but you were like
look
scared
constantly and look behind you and look whatever.
Yeah, like I always remember, even being told that, like if you're out walking, like you always are aware of your surroundings. Always. Like I used to run a lot, and. Like, so I would only run during the day, and I always knew my route. I would always tell someone, like, at least a general idea of where I was going to run. When I was running, like, there's some yards have, like, bushes right at the sidewalk, and I would never run right there. Like, I would always either run out on the street, or I would actually cross the street, like, if there was vehicles right there, and then like there's only enough room basically for the sidewalk, and then there's a hedge or something, like then I would cross the street because I wasn't gonna run there, or just like stuff like that, like. And I was always like, and I would cross the street a lot because then it was easier to like look behind me and watch and keep an eye out for who's around me and what's going on or whatever. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I know big thing that I always think about too is like when I go out, especially when I'm by myself. I always, pay attention to where I park because, like if it's in the daytime, it's not so bad, but parking within closer distance and well lit. Obviously, again, if it's in the daytime, the lighting obviously doesn't really affect it all the time. But, like if it's at night, close to lights, close to the store.
Not behind a cart
Yeah,
thing.
never
like, especially
behind
at Walmart.
the,
they have like those big covered cart places or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I remember telling you guys, like, don't ever park, but, like, on the other side so that thing's between. Like, you park where you have full view of a parking lot so that if you were in trouble, more chance that someone would see you.
Yeah, and when, you're coming out of the store, paying attention the entire time, you look in the backseat of the car, make sure that, you get in the car and lock it right away. I know I've done that before too, where it's like, you get in the car and you sit there, which is so dangerous.
Yeah, I've heard
so
that
dangerous.
so much. Yeah, most people get in their car and then you check your phone before you start driving or whatever, and yeah.
I always check under the car too.
Yeah, now Kaylee's on this like whole checking under the car.
This
thing,
is
too.
literally a thing. This is a thing. The freaking police have talked about it. I don't know. I've heard a bunch of people talk about it. Check under your cars, ladies, and any person, I guess. But because oh my gosh, some people hide under the car and then freaking slash your ankles.
I don't want to think about this. This is
Yeah.
so
Oh.
awful.
I
So
always forget
awful.
to check.
So
You
I
keep
look
talking
under.
about it, but I always still just
But like
forget.
the problem is you can subtly check in the back seat of your car through a window. You cannot subtly look under your car. So I'll just be like leaning over slowly. I'll lean down and tie my shoe because I don't want people to think I'm weird, but I'm like I have to check. And then when I'll get to the door, I'll like lean, like my feet will be out more, and I like lean in, and then I literally jump. Like I don't know. I think part of that
That's
is
amazing.
fear. I heard that and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not good.
Yeah, I mean, there's like so many things. Like, you always have a phone with you.
Yes.
I always remember
Oh my
hearing
goodness.
like if you go for a walk or a run or whatever, like don't have a ponytail because someone can grab that. It's an easy thing. if you have a purse, most people think of like having a purse like a bag or something like shoulder to hip
Over
or
the shoulder?
over the shoulder kind of thing, but like around them. And I always remember hearing like that's not a good idea, because if someone's going to try and go for the bag, then you're better just to have it on one shoulder where they could grab it and just go and not end up having to be in a fight with you. Like that they can just get the purse and go and whatever. Or, like having only one earbud in
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
if you're
nice.
out or whatever.
It's so annoying.
Yeah, it's so irritating.
It's like you can't get the full experience if you only have
Yes.
one earbud in.
Yeah. Well, and then we could talk about parties,
Mhm.
because that's another whole thing. Like when you go out to a party, to a bar, to anywhere, like then it's even like, I always think like, okay, when I'm going to a store, when I'm going out running, when I'm going for a walk, whatever, like that's one thing, because there's a lot less chance I'm going to come across someone that I might have to deal with. Going to a party, going to a bar, which, I mean, I don't do that generally anymore, like, especially not on my own anyways.
Yeah.
But,
And with COVID.
I
haven't seen
there's
anyone
COVID
over a
too,
year.
so-
So.
But it's another whole different animal when you're going to a bar or to a party, because there are a ton of people there. So it's not just a chance that you might run into someone that, it's like there's a whack of people there and you don't know. Like, so, some of the things that we always did, like when I would go out, like we always made sure we were in groups. Like we always had a group of us girls that were together, and we always knew, we always had each other's backs. We were always watching out for each other. If we saw a guy talking to one of us for any length of time, like we had signals that we would give.
Well, because it's not just as easy as being like even just that. It's like, it's not always as easy as just like letting someone down, like rejecting someone. Because those, like, rejection can turn violent. And that's why you have those signals, so that you can get out of it without possibly getting, like, hurt.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like we would just have signals or whatever, and then we just knew, like, whoever it was, like the friends would just come up and be like, oh, hey, like, we're going to go dance now, or, oh, I have something to tell you, or whatever. And, like, that was always pre-set up. Like, as you guys got to ages of going to parties or bars or whatever, like, for me, there was some non-negotiables for you to go. Like, now, I mean, obviously by that age, it's like, it's your own decision anyways what you do. But, I always talk to you like, okay, so here's some non-negotiables for me that I would like for you to have as a I mean, now it's very different too, because you guys have phones, whereas I did not have a phone when I was like your age going out. Like, there was no calling someone, texting someone, anything like that. But there were some non-negotiables that we had, and one was like, like you always have at least one person who will always have your back. Like, they're not going to end up off somewhere with someone else, making out in a corner, out in a room, off getting drunk, like somewhere else. Like, that you always at least have one other person with you, that you watch out for them and they watch out for you, no matter what. And because, like, it just is like that,
Stuff happens.
yeah, like not accepting drinks,
Yeah.
like, from someone that's like, oh, hey, brought you a drink.
Yeah.
So so when are some other times that like this has happened? So some stories, like, for example, like in stores, like you guys have some stories of in stores and stuff.
Yeah, like the thing with this stuff, what kind of led us to talk about this was, I don't know about the rest of you. I mean, we've talked a lot, but I remember stuff happening, and talking to guys about it, and it was just like not believed, you know, which we'll get into later. And so that's kind of what led us to this, are like these things that we've already talked about that we do, but then these like stories where like we actually like use these things because stuff happened.
Yeah, or we
You
know
know?
someone who it happened to.
Yeah. So I remember, I mean, one of the stories that I always tell, because it was just so obvious that something, I mean, there's like a few. The first one, was I mean, it's like the lesser of the stories. You know, as we go, there's like more intense stories that we'll tell. This one was like pretty harmless, but pretty obvious, where we were parked at a, like outside of a like takeout restaurant, and I go in, leave like Kaylee, one of our friends in the car,
Yeah,
I think
it was. Yeah.
I think it was the three of us. And I just go in, notice that a guy is like walking behind me, but you know, it's like there's a lot of restaurants, whatever. I go into the restaurant and he's still following me, and he comes in behind me and stands right behind me. And I order, I go to the side, and he is just staring at me. Like, not ordering, he's the next in line, he doesn't go talk to the person.
Mm-hmm.
He is standing there, just staring at me, looking at his phone, looking at me, and that's all he's doing. And I mean, I was in there for at least 10 minutes getting the food and whatever, and he would not leave. And so, I don't think we talked about this before, but the thing that I have done multiple times in situations like this, is use my phone. So I automatically called Kaylee in the car and just talked. You know, like, didn't say anything, you know, because he was right there. But we just talked because, you know, I've found in situations like that, you know, when I can get on the phone with someone,
Mm-hmm.
they're maybe less likely to do anything because, you know,
Someone else is
You're-
gonna know, or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
So thankfully he left, and, you know, it was all fine, but the thing is, like, you never know,
Yeah.
and, like, it feels weird to talk about it because it's, like, nothing happened, but also because of the situation, it was pretty weird.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where, like, that's something that I tried to always, like, teach you guys, but it's so hard, is to trust your gut instinct,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know? And it's, the reason I say that it's hard is because oftentimes things don't happen.
Yeah.
And so then when you talk to someone and you tell, especially a guy,
Mm-hmm.
because they're like, well, like, he probably just liked you. Like, he
Yeah.
just probably thought, like, you were hot or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And it's like, okay, but, so then you sort of distrust your own gut feeling.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is we don't have the luxury to do that,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because oftentimes when you don't trust your gut, then that sometimes can be when something happens,
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, you can still trust your gut and something can happen, but
Mm-hmm.
but like, that's where I think it's really important that, like, that's great. Like, I think we need to celebrate that something didn't happen and go, oh,
Yes.
thank goodness something didn't happen, instead of like, well, he probably just, like, really liked you or something, or wanted to talk to you and just was, like, really nervous to talk to you. Like,
Or it's
I mean, I
like,
can
you
think
probably
of-
just misread the situation.
Mm-hmm.
He probably wasn't
Right.
even looking at you.
Yeah.
He probably was just walking, and you just were, like, you probably just thought he wanted to look at you. Like,
yeah.
Mhm.
Or you just were kind of scared already, so
Yeah.
then you just thought that that was kind of weird. And to me, I guess I always think, like, you know, like the saying, better safe than sorry. Like, that's, well, I mean, first of all, there's problems with it, but the but you kind of have to live like that. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
you know, it's like you kind of live sort of with that underlying sort of fear
Yeah.
and whatever all the time.
Because you kind of have to, like.
Well, and I remember I was on a walk with a friend actually a few weeks ago, outside, and like I am always looking around me.
Mhm.
Always. Like I've always done that. I always do. And we were in conversation and I wasn't doing it obviously, and this guy came running out. He was on a run.
Mhm.
And I just remember that, like, just intense, like, I literally just froze. Every part of my body just, like, and I just stopped, and I just sat, and then, like, he ran by, and I was like, oh, it's not like,
Mhm.
but I was like, oh my goodness, I wasn't looking around. Like, I gotta pay attention more. Like, I gotta, that should not have happened.
Yeah.
Was, like, one of the, after that intense fear,
Mhm.
that was like the other first thought in my mind was like, oh my goodness, that shouldn't have happened. Like I should have been looking around, which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
But so you guys have been on walks, in stores, in parks. Like, you want to tell any of those stories?
Oh my gosh, that fun adventure that we
tell
had.
first?
Like again, I just feel like a lot of these stories, like we've told people these stories, and it's always like, I think you are just reading into it.
Yeah.
So it makes you doubt it. But the
Yeah.
fact is, like, no. We were right. Anyways, so this one time, one of our neighbors, like this young kid, that was our neighbor, he just disappeared. And we couldn't find him in our neighborhood, and so the parents were like, can you help look for him? So we were like, of course. And it was pretty late. It was pretty dark out.
Yeah.
It was pitch black. Like there was, yeah.
Yeah, so we're all out looking, and Erica and I went together to look. So we're in the park, literally like 5 minutes away from our house, and there's these two guys in like pajamas, and we're screaming out this kid's name, right?
Yeah.
So these two guys come up and they're like, hey, like, what are you guys doing?
Okay, first, I'm in high school, probably like 15. You're probably like
I would have been
12 then?
Yeah.
12 or 13 maybe?
And I think we were both in like pajamas as well.
Yeah.
Like I had just gotten out of the shower. Like we were.
It was really late.
It was late.
These
We
guys
were
were
not prepared.
late 20s,
Yeah.
early 30s.
We were very young, and they
Yes.
were quite old.
Yeah.
And they're in the park, and they were like, oh, like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? So, immediately, I think we were both like, oh, like, hi.
Yeah.
So we just said, someone's lost, we're looking for them. Like, we're looking for a friend of ours or something. And then they were like, oh, like, we're cops. Like, we can help you find them. You just gotta, like, I don't even remember exactly what they said, but they were saying that, like, we're cops, we can help you, tell us what's going on. And Erica and I just, like, both got a bad feeling about it. And it was just a very weird situation, and we did not trust them. And even if they were cops, I still wouldn't trust them. So
No.
we were like...
Because they were like, didn't they ask us where we live and, like,
Yeah.
if we want their help?
They were
that
asking
should,
weird
like...
questions, so we basically were just like, no. Thanks a lot, though, but we're just gonna... I think we might have even said, oh my gosh, actually they
Yeah, I
found
think
them.
we did.
Oh.
Actually,
I think-
they found him, so we're just gonna go home now. So, and I think we kind of had to, like, talk out of it, because they were like, no, like, we'll help. And we were like, no, like, it's fine. And that's why we finally were just like, he's found. We don't need your help anymore. We're just gonna go home. So we started walking away, and we were like, we can't go, like, home, because then they're gonna follow us home.
Well, because they started to follow us.
Yeah, so they started to follow us, and I was, like, full on panicking. I was, like, freaking out, and we were, like, walking. And then I think this other guy started walking behind us, and I was, like, panicking. And then we just ended up sitting outside of a
gas
of
station.
a gas station
Firehouse.
for, like, 15 minutes. It felt like 3 hours, but probably wasn't that long. Because they were following us, so then we went to where, like, people were, because there were some people and some cars around, and we just, like, sat there. And we were obviously fine, but they were following us.
They were like following us
Yeah.
to the gas station, and then I think I remember looking behind, and they stopped once we were like at the gas station because there were like people there.
Yeah.
Really scary.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and then like, you know, I've had times where you know, someone will come up to me in like a parking lot or whatever, ask for money or whatever, and like I totally want to help. I really do. But it's like that's just really it's scary. Like, you know, and it was one thing even when I was by myself, but then when I would have you guys with me, like especially when you were little, you know, that just freaked me out so much because you hear these stories of like, you know, people like for trafficking and like all this kind of stuff, and like
they're always like big guys, I find, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like you could break me with a breath, like I can't, you know.
Yeah, well, it's just stuff that like that most people, or if you're not a woman, you really don't think about it.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily think about it.
Which then can become a danger to us as well, because when guys, like I think we need to talk to guys about these things, because I always get surprised when I hear, like, I would tell a guy friend or even like my brother or, you know, my dad, and, you know, telling these stories, and they would be like, like, what are you talking about? And they just they don't get it. They don't think about these things. The problem is when they don't think about these things, it can put, like, you at risk. It can put, you know, like, there was this one time, and I think I was about, like, probably, like, 15, maybe 14, 14 or 15, and my whole family went over to a friend's house for Halloween. So this is Halloween night, and a friend of mine, and then he had a friend, he had like 2 friends there or whatever too. So 3 guys, and I knew them all, and they were like, oh, like, Kaylee, what if I just want to go, like, let's go to, I don't even remember exactly what they said. I think, let's go to, like, my friend's house.
You were going
and
for
say
a
hi.
walk or something, and then
Yeah, they said, let's go
Yeah.
for a walk. And I think they said, like, my friend lives, like, right out there, and we're just gonna, like, say hi.
just like a few minutes.
Yeah, and they said, like, it's like a 5-minute walk. Like, 5 to 10 minute walk. So I was like, okay, I have my phone.
You would have asked us too.
Yeah, I asked my mom. It was like, I had my
yeah.
phone. I knew these guys.
We knew them
and
too.
they said 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, if anything happens, I literally can just walk back to the house alone. But I probably shouldn't have even gone, but, you know, thinking about it now. But I was like, oh, whatever. So it's dark, it's late. And so we start walking, and we get, like, 15 minutes in, and I'm like, so where's the house? Like, I thought you said 5 to 10 minutes. I'm pretty sure we're past that. And they're like, no, God, like, we're so close, Kaylee, like, don't even worry. So we keep walking, and I think it was about, like, a 30-minute walk to this random kid's house. So we get to the house, and I was, like, panicking. Like, I was freaking out. I was like, I can't be here. Like, if anything happens, there's no way for me to get out. We get to this random guy's house. I don't know him. They're talking about maybe going inside and all this stuff. So this is, like, 4 guys, and I'm completely alone on Halloween night. So I phoned my mom and, like, pinned my location and sent it to her, and I was like, you need to come right now. And I was so mad. I think we even gave them a ride home.
Yeah, I think so.
And the thing is, I doubt that they were trying to do anything, like, malicious. But
No.
the problem is that because they are guys, they never had those conversations about safety because they don't have to worry about that.
Mhm.
And so they
Well,
were
and it was very laughed off, and like even after, because I was upset too. I was like, that is not okay. Like, that is not acceptable. That's not okay. I mean, it was freezing cold too. It was, you know, like, I mean, even just all of that aside, but for a girl to be by herself, and I mean, we totally trusted these guys that you went with too. Like, we knew them really well. But the fact that, like, it never even had to cross their mind about the fact that you could have still been in danger and stuff, and then just how it was just laughed off and like, oh, it's not a big deal, like, it was like an extra walk, you got some extra exercise, and
yeah, well, because
like
I was
all this,
very
and
upset and I was panicking and I just wasn't okay with it, and just everyone kind of just like made fun of me and were just like, oh my gosh, Kaylee, like, you're so over dramatic and stuff, and it's like, but people, like, women get hurt that way.
yeah,
I know women who stuff like that has happened to. It's not a joke.
no.
Like, it's not funny. And that's the problem when guys aren't aware of these things, when guys don't believe these things, is that, like, it puts you in danger. Because I can almost guarantee that if those were girls, that wouldn't have happened. Wouldn't have happened the same way, whatever. Because we have to think about those things. Because our lives are at risk, but of course a guy isn't going to think about that. Why would he?
Yeah. Yeah. Did you have any other story, or? I know I was going to, one thing that, like, we've always kind of joked about this, and this has kind of always been a bit of a joke, sort of, with your dad. And, I mean, he's very known by his friends over the years, the stuff that he's done, like, you know, sleeping in a bank, bank, like, whatever, in a doorway, you know, like all of the random people he has picked up over the years who were walking on the sides of roads and highways and whatever.
Yeah.
In the city, of how many people that he's picked up and given rides across the city to, or somewhere.
Well, like strangers.
Yeah, complete
Yeah.
strangers. Yes.
Like, strangers will ask for a ride, or he'll offer a ride.
Yes.
Not as much anymore, but...
No, because I, like, lost it and freaked out, because, you know, but I remember, like, numerous times, like, especially, like, it's gotten less and less as you guys have, like, as we had kids and whatever, like that, but, like, when we first got married, we lived on the north side, and we were very close to, I was working north of the city, and then he was going to university, and so he would take the LRT and stuff, and so then, like, he would have a bit of a walk, and I remember numerous times where, like, he would come home and said, like, oh, you know, he met someone, and then he went to a store to buy stuff and then bring it back, and then a number of times he would actually end up, like, at a crack house where he was, like, dropping off all this stuff, and, you know, and whatever, which is, like, okay, that's amazing. Like, I mean, he loves to help people, and that's incredible. All those things, but, like, you know, and, like, I would just be so freaked out, and I never really, you know, I was just like, that's crazy, like, and he's like, I'm fine, like, I've never had a problem, now, I mean, very lucky that he didn't have problems, like, the number of people that he picked up and gave rides to, like, random strangers and stuff, like, incredible, like, there hasn't ever been a problem. But what made me really think, especially when we started talking about this, was, like, every single one of those stories, I was like, I never would have even considered even doing those.
Yeah.
Like, not even, like, oh, like, well, you know, it might be okay. Like, I wouldn't even have considered it. Like, it wouldn't even have entered my mind to even think about going to a random, like, house, random apartment, picking someone up off the side of the road, a total stranger, giving rides in the cities. Like, I wouldn't even have done that because it just would not have been safe at all.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Definitely not.
not at all. Like, it wouldn't even have entered my mind to even think about it. And then it's like he tells all these stories and I'm just like, oh my goodness, like but not realizing that's why I thought that was so crazy and insane.
Yeah.
Because I could never even take that chance. Like,
Yeah.
or I wouldn't take that chance. And now I do know, I mean, I have a friend who works like out on the streets and like bringing meals and all this kind of stuff, but I also know they have groups of people that are together and stuff like that. And I mean, that's amazing. But like, you know, just that kind of thinking. And so, you know, like then, like, how does that affect us? Well, you know, in some ways it's like we're kind of trained for fear, trained to be paranoid, trained to, like, you know, when you're always looking over your shoulder, when you're always looking around, you're like, oh my goodness, sort of that fear, you know, all like sort of any time. And like, that's hard.
Yeah.
Just living with that, let alone then when you tell someone a story and they don't believe you.
Yeah.
Like, then it's even worse because you already are like we already sort of like live in that fear and that, like, maybe I was kind of crazy. Like, maybe
Yeah.
that really wasn't, like, you know, we question. And then when there's other people that are like, oh, wow, I'm sure, like,
Yeah.
nothing, but.
Yeah, like, I think about all the time, like, the things that, like, I wish I could do, and I think it just is, like, you just can't, you know, like, you can't go on walks alone at night, you can't, like, whatever, because it's just, that's way too big of a risk, and it just is, yeah, like, it's just sad sometimes. And frustrating sometimes, the things that you can't do and the paranoia you have to live with, because it's not just for yourself, like, it's also like every time, like, a woman that I know leaves the house, I'm thinking about that. Every time I'm on the street, I'm walking, I'm like driving, whatever, I'm always watching for women. Like, if I'm walking by a bus stop or a corner or something and there's a guy and there's a woman and she doesn't really look, like, super comfortable, even if it's just a woman alone and there's a guy talking to her, I'll typically just, like, hold back and wait and make sure that, like, everything's
totally.
okay. If I see a woman walking alone, I pay attention because you're, like, aware of what this world does to women, and it's really scary. And so it's not just fear for yourself, it's also fear for every woman that you run into, every woman that you know, which can be, like, it's just, like, exhausting, always worrying about it, always being scared about that.
Well, yeah, and, like, I've heard people make comments, like, you know, for example, like, with, like, you know, when your dad does that kind of stuff, and then people say, well, yeah, but, like, men really shouldn't do that anyways, either.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm like, right, but the fact that he actually thought about it and then actually went through and did it.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't do that.
Well, my thing with that, too, like, one, there are many things like this that we've talked about, we will talk about on the podcast in the future, are these things that distract, right? Like, when a woman is telling her story of something that happened, and then a guy, and they're talking about how, like, you know, they just, like, can't do certain things. And then people, like you said, bring up that, where it's like, well, guys shouldn't do that either.
Mm-hmm.
It, like, distracts from the fact, from, like, what the woman is talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Also, wait, I, like, forgot my point. That really sucks.
Well, it's like, yeah.
Well, it wasn't about the fact that a guy shouldn't do that either.
Yeah.
Like, that wasn't the point of the story. The point of the
Yes.
story was the woman in that case sharing what happened and how it affected her.
Oh, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, See, I struggle with this so much because you get people in our society now that are like, oh, you just like hate on men, you know? And you just don't like men, and this is so unfair. And it's like, yeah, I mean, like, I wish that we lived in a world where everyone was treated equal and you could view everyone equal. Like, I wish. That would be amazing. But unfortunately, like we've been saying, you know, I mean, literally, this is at all times. Like, I go to bed thinking about this. That's why, like, sometimes I will lock my door, or I, like, don't have bars on my windows because I want an easy escape. I keep my phone by my bed because I'm, like, these thoughts never leave. I step out of the house and this is, like, you just think about this and there is a level of fear and anxiety there. And it's like, yeah, I wish that didn't have to be there with men. But it does, and that doesn't mean any woman necessarily hates men because of it. It's just to stay safe. There's just that there.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and just to, like, expect women to... Because comparing men and women, and men's experience and women's experience, is ridiculous. It cannot be compared. The fact is that women are not treated the same as men. And that's just the truth. And so to be like, to try to tell women that, well, you just need to get over it. You just need to be nicer to men. You need to, you know, whatever. Well, it's not all men, so you just need to, like, what, you can't, you don't have to trust all men, but you have to trust most of them. But it's like, right, but when...
How do you know?
That's the
when
thing.
when like 50% of the women that you know have been attacked, more than 50%, most of the women I know have experienced some form of assault or something. When those numbers are that high, there is no room for blind trust.
Yeah.
There, like, I will always say that, like, any man could earn my trust. But it's not something that I give at first glance. Like, no, I'm not going to trust you immediately until you've proven that you're trustworthy. Because the truth is that could get me killed. And that gets a lot of women killed or harmed in some way. And it's not against you as a person. Like, it's not about you. And I think that's the thing is, it's not about you. And in these situations that we talk about, when people doubt you, when people go, oh, I don't think it really happened, I think that, like, a big part of that is that they're making it about them. Yeah. And it's like, but it's not about you. It's about women. Yeah. It's about me. It's about my experience. It's about women's experience. It's about the fact that most women have a story to tell that's not pretty.
Well, yeah, and I don't understand. Well, I guess I sort of do actually understand with, like, you know, from doing a lot of the emotional intelligence stuff that I'm doing, I do actually more understand now. But, like, I used to never understood, like, why is it so important for, you know, like, if I'm telling a guy a story and, you know, and they're like, well, but it's not all men, or, you know, like that's kind of like a big thing right now. It's kind of a big sentence right now and stuff. And it's like, you know, and I do understand that because it's like something is triggered in them that they're feeling attacked. They're taking it personally and stuff like that. And that's what you had said. Like, it's not about you. Just because when we tell this story, when we tell these stories of being followed and this and that and like all these like numerous stories, like, I mean, we barely scratched the surface of talking about anything here, but it's not about any one person. It's the fact that, like, this is actually normal life, unfortunately. And, like, we've found ways to like, okay, somehow we have to have some way to protect ourselves or do this or do that. And when that gets taken further and too far, then it becomes where then the person who was the victim becomes blamed for it.
Yeah.
That's where that leads. And so that's why also for me, and I think a lot of women have a hard time and are standing up against that, like, not all men. Like, we already understand that. No one has said it is every single man on this planet. No, it's not. We totally get that. But we don't know who.
Yeah.
And then when that gets taken further, the victim ends up victimized again.
Yeah.
Because they're not believed. And it's written off, and it's like, whatever, and that. And then it's even worse.
Yeah.
Because then you start thinking you're crazy.
Yeah.
Which is, it's crazy to think about that, because that, you can see that start from the beginning of, like, a girl's life, a woman's life. You know, that, like, thinking you're crazy, thinking you're making stuff up, which, I mean, historically, women have been made out to be crazy in every situation. But,
Well,
you know,
when a little boy, like, hits a girl, and then the little girl is told, oh, he just must like you.
yeah. And you're not
What?
even, and it's like, you're not even allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to be hurt.
No, because it's like, well, he just likes you.
Yeah. And
Like,
you just
he
have to
likes
get
you.
over
Like,
it.
You
Which
should
is
be
so
honored.
nice.
You should be honored that he likes you. You should be excited.
Yeah.
Like, that is not what we should be teaching our kids.
No.
Like, that's not what we should be teaching our girls. That's not what we should be teaching our boys. That is such a toxic, dangerous message.
Yeah.
And I know that I've had conversations with people and they're like, but they're just kids. Like, it's like, yes, they are children, and they're children who are going to grow up to be teenagers, who are going to be grown up to be adults. And if that is a message in their life, that doesn't just change when you become an adult.
Well, because you are teaching boys, and we see this in the aggression that so many men have, is that you are teaching boys that they can do whatever they want, and there will be no consequences. And the truth of it is, in our real world, with real adult men, that is the same. That's the same. There are no consequences for a lot of men. There are no consequences. They can do whatever they want. And we teach them that from young, that you can do whatever you want, and it doesn't matter. And your feelings are more important, because that's what you're telling, and then you're telling little girls that your feelings don't matter. What you think or feel or anything, it doesn't matter. And boys will always be put first. Yeah. And the fact is, in our real world, that is true. Men will always be put first. Men's feelings and actions will always be put first. But that's really not a good thing to be teaching women, that this is how things are and this is how things should be.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care what you feel, because men's feelings are always more important.
Well, and that just, that really takes us into, like, another conversation that we definitely are going to have. This one we really wanted to just start the conversation about this, and really, like, even us just starting it, like, even we, I think, realized, like, how big it actually is. Like, like, I mean, goodness, like, we wrote down so much stuff, didn't even do probably half of it, and that's not even, like, hardly anything of what we could think of too if we actually thought about it. I mean, this was just kind of writing stuff down. So what do we want to leave with anyone who decides to listen to this, and who listens and gets this far and into the episode and whatever? Like, what do we want to leave with people?
I think there's a couple things. Like, the biggest purpose with this episode specifically, like you said, this topic very much leads into other things that we will be talking about. We actually have planned for future episodes right now. But for this one, because it's Women's Day especially, my biggest goal in this is just to, I don't even know, like, just show how strong women are. You know, like, we go through so much stuff. We have to think about so much stuff for our own safety, for other women's safety. And I think it's just amazing what we do in our world, and I hope that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well,
We're
and I
feeling
hope that we
empowered.
just have more empathy too towards
Yes.
people. Like, you know, because it's not just guys that don't believe women either. I've seen a lot of times where women don't believe
Mhm.
women
Yeah.
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think, like, we just need to stop that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think you were saying this the other day, like, for the amount, for the actual percentage of people that actually lie about something, like, lie about a story, it's so small, it's
Yeah.
so insignificant, really, that for the many, such high percentage that it really actually did happen to, we need to believe.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need to back each other up. We need to support each other. We need to come together. We need to watch out for each other. We need to, you know, have each other's backs.
And I think that's for, like, men too.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it's so important, I think, for guys to be aware of this. Because, like, you need to watch out for women too.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's super important.
Yeah, like if you see a girl or a woman alone, like, watch and make sure. If you see a woman alone at a party somewhere,
Yes.
or someone going off with a woman somewhere or whatever, like, just take those extra bit of time to check out what's going on.
Yeah, and to
And see
realize
and
that,
ask.
like, you don't live in the same world that
Yeah.
a woman does. And to, like, just be aware of that. Like, to be aware of that could save a woman's life,
Yeah.
you know?
So really, we wanted this to be like a celebration, you know, like I said in the beginning, a recognition of women and what we go through, because we do really want to celebrate Women's Day.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's 4 of us. There's another younger sister in the family, like, you know, and we love the guys in our life, and we love us as women, and, like, it's just about doing life together and celebrating and listening and hearing each other and all of that. So, like, that's really what we want to do. And again, I mean, this will take us into other topics, but if you stay with us, we'll cover more stuff, go through
Yeah.
more topics, and some will be a little bit more controversial, but you know, we really wanted a celebration for this day. So,
Yeah.
and so all our social media, Jillian.
We have TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and podcasts.
Yeah, and most of those were all at what?
The official WWP.
Yes. And yeah, so I think that's it for today on.
See you next week on
Wait, what?
No, I didn't say after. I don't remember what. I don't know how
Wait,
you
what?
Wait, what?
Oh my goodness.
Stop it.